keep the joy of being together in one heart, and for me, that's just where it is. All I ask of you is forever to remember me as loving you. As we make our way through all the joys and pain, and we sense our younger, truer selves. All I ask of you is forever to remember me as loving you. All I ask of you is forever to remember me as loving you. Someone will be calling you to be there for a while. Can you hear their cry from deep within? All I ask of you is forever to remember me as loving you. Laughter, joy, and presence, the only gifts you are. Have you time? I'd like to be with you. All I ask of you is forever to remember me as loving you. Their sins come into the fiber of our lives, and then their shadows fade and disappear. All I ask of you is forever to remember me as loving you. As we make our way
to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Distinguished guests, including our governor and lieutenant governor, government officials, foreign dignitaries, municipal employees, and friends, on behalf of the Carpenter family, thank you all for being here to celebrate the success and to honor the legacy of Bill Carpenter. Listening to those words of Emerson, one cannot help but think of how precisely they describe Bill Carpenter's life and career. There is no doubt that he succeeded at both. And his recipe was quite simple. He was not a politician, but a people person. He treated everyone the same, and when he said something, he meant it. Bill Carpenter was authentic. He was sincere, loyal, and devoted. He was a friend. He was an advocate, a father, and a grandfather. Bill's success as a public servant are well documented and undisputed. As successful a public servant as he was an even more successful father. My father was the most selfless human being I have had the pleasure to meet, always placing his children above all else, despite whatever obstacles may have been thrown his way. His tragic and untimely passing has left an enormous void in the Carpenter family. But, as JFK once said, the one unchangeable certainty is that nothing is unchangeable or certain. Just a few short months ago, I stood and posed for a photograph with my grandfather, my father, and my oldest son. This photograph of the four of us, all named William Carpenter, had become a young tradition at family gatherings as a way to forever memorialize 4 living generations of William Carpenter. Never again will such a photograph be taken. No longer are there 4 living generations of William Carpenter. On June 10th, we were reduced to 3, then to 2 on July 3rd. Suddenly, at 40 years old, I am the patriarch of the Carpenter family, a role unexpected, but one that my father has prepared me for my entire life. Ryan, Brady, Mac, Curran, and most importantly, Delaney, I cannot replace Dad. In fact, not a single man can. But I promise to be that pillar of strength for you to lean on during your times of need and to be your anchor of support in difficult moments. And so long as we stick together and draw from the character that Dad has instilled in us, we can be those things for each other. Julie, you are forever a part of the Carpenter family. In closing, I reflect on another JFK quote. He said, "Change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past are certain to miss the future." While some may choose to remember July 3rd as the day that my father's life ended, I will choose to remember it as the day that his legacy began. Again, thank you all for being here to celebrate the success and to honor the legacy of Bill Carpenter.
Good morning. I'm Bill McCoy, chaplain with the Brockton Fire Department, and I'm honored to be standing here before you today. On behalf of everyone gathered here, my deepest condolences to you, the family of Bill Carpenter, as well as to Bill's staff and close friends. I extend our welcome to Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito. We're grateful that you joined us today. It truly is a privilege and an honor to be in this position. I thank the mayor's family for asking me to take part in Bill's services. I spent some sad time with them since the death of the mayor's father a month ago. Sometimes when it rains, it pours, as the weather outside indicated earlier today. This has been a difficult few days, to put it mildly. I have to say how impressed I have been with how well city officials, funeral director David Russell, and more than a few others have come together and worked together with Bill's family to bring us where we are today. You've made Brockton proud once again, and it bodes well for the future and the legacy Bill just mentioned. All of us will get through this together, I'm sure of it. I've been in this venue on more than several occasions, most memorably for me when my son performed with the Brockton High Jazz Band under the direction of Vinnie Macrina, what had to be about 130 years ago. Now, Vinnie's not nearly that old, but some days I feel that way. I recognize there are a variety of traditions and cultures and faiths represented here among us, which is certainly fitting for the City of Champions. Whatever your background or status or belief, I trust you'll find comfort and some healing and reassurance during this brief while. This is not easy, but as Bill well knew, nothing worth doing is. That said, I ask you to bow your heads and pray with me. Let us pray. Loving God, you receive us always in a loving embrace as a father his wayward son, or like a mother who nurtures her young. And so we ask that nothing separate us from your love, O Lord, that we may be, each of us, embraced by it gently, that we may be strengthened by it steadily down all our days, that we may be instruments of this love gladly, as was Bill. Draw near to us, we pray, that we may receive the encouragement you offer to us by your saving word. May this word be for us a lamp unto our feet through the darkness of our days, and a light for our path through all the changing scenes of life. Lord, as you walk through the valley of every shadow, be our good shepherd, we pray, and sustain us while we walk with you. Be to us a refuge and a strength. Remind us that in your holy keeping are those who have gone before us and go with us still. That in you, O Lord, ours is a life unbound by time or by fear or by sorrow. Abide with us, O God, we pray, and grant to us your peace. We ask it in the name of Christ, who is our peace. Amen. I saw Julie Smith Caldwell, Bill's lifetime partner, embrace hundreds of people at yesterday's wake, City Hall. Julie has worked in the Brockton public school system for many years, and today she reads to us from the book of Psalms.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
I'm proud to invite our chief of the Brockton Fire Department, to the podium to share with us another reading from the book of Psalms. Mike Williams.
A reading from Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth should change, though mountains shake in the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble with tumult. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation for the Most High. God is in the midst of the city. It shall not be moved. God will help when the morning dawns. The nations are in uproar. the kingdoms totter. He utters his voice, the earth melts. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge.
It's no surprise that Governor Baker is here with us today, and we're honored to have him, of course. This is hardly the first time he has been to our fair city. He has worked with Bill on a number of projects for the good of our city and the Commonwealth. I give you Governor Baker.
So good morning. You know, a few years ago, I was here at this school, and I took a tour, and I talked to the administrative leadership and a bunch of the teachers and visited some classrooms. And then I went to the library where I had a roundtable discussion with a bunch of kids. And we talked about a bunch of different things, and then I said, okay, if there's one thing, just one thing you want me to leave here knowing about this school, what would it be? And a whole bunch of kids gave me a variety of answers. And then one young girl looked at me and she said with a certain amount of defiance, this school is in the city of champions. The kids in this school are champions. The teachers in this school are champions. The families in this city are champions. We are champions. She said it with an edge. And that may be part of why I'll never forget it. But I thought about it a lot when I heard the news about Mayor Carpenter. And I thought about what it meant to be a champion. A champion is somebody who can tell a story, who can pull people into a conversation, who engage you in a discussion, can share a vision, and demonstrates time and time again that their word means something, and that you can depend on them to follow through and execute. Now, before Bill Carpenter was mayor, he was a boxing announcer. And I remember that voice because he did a lot of nationally televised fights. And the enthusiasm that he had for what he saw in front of him when he would call a fight would make you feel like you were there. He could engage you without even being there in what he was witnessing and why you should be engaged. Then he was a talk show host. Now, most of us know that the standard line of thought in talk shows is conflict, polarity, they call it. That wasn't his talk show. His talk show was like a comedy show. And the back and forth that he had with callers and with guests was fun, interesting, and he pulled you in. And I was always fond of saying that the reason I ran for the select board in Swampscott was because I thought being on the school committee was too hard. Still is. So what did Bill do when he decided to step into the public square? School committee. Why? Because he loves kids. And then, of course, he became the mayor, a champion of this city, Brockton, the city of champions. And over the course of his time in that very public role, he was a champion for many causes, popular ones and unpopular ones, unknown causes that he made known and brought people in the same way he did it when he would draw you into one of those fights that he was announcing, or he would draw you into a conversation on the radio, or he would draw you in a school committee meeting, or he would draw you in as a candidate and a campaigner and as mayor. And that's a big part of the reason why, when we were looking for a local official to serve on our opioid task force, we asked him. First of all, we knew he would say yes, because that's what he does. Secondly, we knew he would be great, and he was. And third, we knew that whatever he said he would do, and he did. You know, when I think about Mayor Carpenter, I think about this city of champions, and I think about all the causes and the people that he championed. But I also think about what it means to be a traditional values person. Your word means something. Your friendships matter. You'll talk to anybody. Every voice is important. Community is the essence of a great community. He's an old-fashioned guy in every positive sense of that word, who was capable of adapting to what it meant to be an old-fashioned person as the world changed. But in the end, what he was most of all was a son of Brockton and a champion. And I'll tell you something, that's a champion I'm going to miss. And I know I speak for many people here today, and so many more, when I say that I am glad that I got a chance to spend some time with a champion of the city of champions, Brockton.
Thank you, Governor Baker. It's my understanding, by way of our own Mary Waldron, that one of the many responsibilities of the Lieutenant Governor is to develop and maintain municipalities with the Governor's office among cities and towns throughout the Commonwealth. And Karen Polito has done this admirably and has been deeply saddened by the news and reasons for our gathering here today. So we are grateful, and I'd like to invite Lieutenant Governor Polito to the podium.
Good morning. I'm not surprised to see so many here today and yesterday coming through City Hall. I have to say, and I may feel the way I do, many of you may feel the same, whether you are in this city, live in this city, or you have visited over the past couple of days. Coming yesterday and coming today is the first time I ever felt sad coming to the city. Because every time I've come here, and I have visited every city and town in this Commonwealth, I came to Brockton a lot. I loved coming to this city. And I will always love coming to this city. But I felt sad yesterday and I felt sad today because I couldn't have the usual visit with the mayor. And the usual visit with the mayor always came with some fun. He always loved to show off his favorite spots. and we spent a lot of time at those together. An official visit would always be, let's meet in the office at the conference table. And we'd spend time at that table just updating and reviewing and looking ahead. In every visit, such energy, such commitment, such love, and I miss that already between yesterday and today coming here. I would say that in doing that, I remember a few things from our friend. First of all, as a public servant, that's what we celebrate today. We celebrate a great man, someone who gave so much to this city, but we recognize him as an amazing leader and a great public servant. And what made him so great as a public servant? How did he stand out? And maybe some of you just sort of assumed that this is just the way public servants work, but it's not always the case. He was a great public servant because he cared so deeply about this city. He brought to every meeting such a commitment. He worked it. He worked it relentlessly. And I think there are a couple of secretaries here from our administration, and you know what that means. He worked it in every which way that he could, taking advantage of every opportunity to bring every dollar and penny of resource and attention to this city. Not only did he view that as his job and his responsibility, but he did it because he deeply cared, and that's what made him an outstanding leader and public servant. The other observation I would share is that he woke up every day in this city and he literally put his shoulder behind the effort to move this city forward. And he saw the beauty in this city every single day. He would look out, walk the streets, get on the phone, visit, and while the city has challenges like many communities do, he didn't focus on that. He focused on the beauty. He focused on the goodness of the people. He focused on where he could make the difference to make things better. He focused on the fix. He focused relentlessly on building that momentum that has been moving this city forward. He also made me, and maybe I speak on behalf of the other mayors who are here and that serve in the Commonwealth and other elected officials, he made me a better public servant. And that's maybe why I enjoyed my visits with him and the many text messages and the voice messages. In fact, over the past few days, I've gone back and looked at our posts on Twitter, and I've looked at our texts and looked at our pictures, and I'm sure many of you have done that too. But he made me a public servant, better public servant, because he worked it. And he worked so hard at it. He worked so hard at it. He lived this as the mayor of this city every moment of his days. And the harder he worked, and when those calls for some help and guidance and support came, you would never want to let him down. All I wanted to do was work hard with him so that he could succeed for all of you. For all of you, for this city of champions, and for, more importantly, the next generation. I was so honored when he called and said, I'd like you to come to my inauguration. And I obviously was thrilled to receive that invitation. And so I accepted and looked forward to that event. And then the day before he called me and he said, now, I just want you to be aware that I've put my remarks together, and there's just a line in there about the governor and you, and I'd like you to do a little bit more for our schools. So I just want you to know that. I say a lot of nice things about you because I care about you and I love our partnership and our friendship. So there's a lot of nice things in there, but I do have that one line in there, and if you're uncomfortable, I just wanted you to be able to decide whether you wanted to come or not. And I said, oh yeah, I'll be there, and I'll smile when you say it. And he said, all right, great, and the show went on, right? When you think about a champion, sometimes you think about someone that, you know, is in the arena with the lights all around him or her. When we think of Bill Carpenter as a champion and as the mayor of this great city, it wasn't about him. It was about everyone else. And I think that is a reminder to every one of us that comes here to think generously about others around you, to give of yourself to make life better for not only your family and your friends, but for the community, which he loved and gave so, so much. I would also just like to say to all of us here, and I want to just thank very much so his right hands, Nick Giaquinto and Darren and Peter. I really loved seeing you when I saw the mayor as well. You were all there, right there with him, your extraordinary staff. Thank you. But I would just like to close with the sense of responsibility that I think that we all have today about the future of this city. When you have someone like this mayor who was so extraordinary at his job and his work every day with his shoulder behind the effort to move this city forward, I'm sure many of us come to this room and say, how do we continue to be that relentless force that he was moving this city forward? So I would say that it's on us. It's on every one of us to make sure that the leadership turns into the legacy, and that legacy is the future of the City of Champions, of Brockton. And it's on us to make sure that we work hard as a community, the business leaders, the elected leaders, the state leaders, to make sure that this city gets all the attention, all the spotlight in a good way that it deserves to move forward. And let's make sure that we embrace that responsibility in his name to move this city forward. Now, and on that note, I want to just say a thank you to his family, because you gave an extraordinary amount of your time and your support for Bill Carpenter to do his job. The last time I saw Bill was on a hot day. It was June 26th, and we were at the site of the former Kresge department store. And the mayor was so happy to have one more project under construction. How many times has he been saying that over the past few years? One more project under construction. And he was really excited about seeing that project get underway, but there was one point that he said, the only feeling I have about this particular spot is that Prova won't be here at the site of Kresge. But like BC, he found another location for Prova. Now, Prova means proof. And he loved Prova so much because it was proving that downtown Brockton is a destination for dining and entertainment. So I would finalize my words with that one word of Prova, of proof. Let's make sure that we continue to prove that Brockton is a great place to live, to work, to commute from, to raise your family, to start a business, to own a business, to grow a business. Let's prove it. And let's make sure that we make our mayor, Bill Carpenter, proud. Love you all, and thank you.
hide in his shadow for thine. Say to the Lord, my refuge, my rock, in whom I trust, and he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the swan, and hold you in the palm of his hand. The snare of the fowler will never capture you, and famine will bring you no fear. Under his wings your refuge, his faithfulness your shield, and he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the swan, and hold you in the palm of his hand. For to his angels he's given a command to guard you in all of your ways. Upon their hands they will bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. And he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the swan, and hold you in the palm of his hand, and hold you in the palm of his hand.
A man who really needs no introduction, who's served our city in law enforcement for many years, and is our Chief of Police, Chief John Crowley.
A reading from the 2 Corinthians chapter 4. But we have this treasure in earthen vessels to show that the transcendent power belongs to God and not to us. We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down, but not destroyed. So we do not lose heart, though our outer nature is wasting away, our inner nature is being renewed every day. For that we know that if the earthly tent we lived is destroyed, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. The one who has prepared us for everything is God, who has given us the Spirit as a guarantee.
At a family wedding I attended some years ago, the father of the groom was introduced to me during the reception, an hour or two into the reception, I should say, if you take my meaning. "Brockton," he said, after hearing where I came from, Massachusetts. He was from Westminster. No, he was from Winchester. Winchester. I said, "Yes, Brockton." To which he said, a bit unsteady with a cocktail in his hand, "Nobody's from Brockton." I figured discretion was a better part of valor, so I refrained from giving him a Marciano 1-2 punch or a Marvin Hagler uppercut to the jaw. Bill Carpenter and I have had that much in common. We've shared a love for the city of Brockton and its citizens over the years. As far as we've been concerned, nobody outside the city limits could trash talk Brockton without a fight, at least not a verbal one. Truth be told, I couldn't hold a candle to the mayor's dedication to our fair city. David Russell, who's been typically remarkable in the dedication to the city and to this occasion, yesterday was at the wake at City Hall, and more besides, just instrumental in all that's going on over the last while. He had told me recently that if there were a crisis and he needed to speak with the mayor at 3 in the morning, he was on the phone with the mayor at 3 in the morning. Bill would always be there. Public safety was paramount to Bill, as anyone in our police or fire departments knows. And laying aside differences that forever arise in the public forum, Brockton has indeed benefited from that priority throughout Bill's terms as mayor. Add to it Bill's untiring attention to Brockton schools and the education of their students, or his concern for the effect opioids have had on Brockton residents, and you get a clearer sense of just how deep his dedication has been. And we've heard about that from the governor and lieutenant governor here today. Now, a moment ago, I mentioned differences. As anyone knows, in public office, there is no pleasing everyone, and sometimes it would appear there's no pleasing anyone. I like this passage just read by Chief Crowley in Paul's second letter to the church at Corinth, where he describes something of the human predicament. We have this treasure in clay jars, or earthen vessels, as it says in the King James Version. The treasure, presumably whatever gifts we bring to the table, be it compassion, wisdom, creativity, stamina, leadership. Name your treasure. Bill brought treasure to the table, and because he was an earthen vessel, he was by no means perfect. He was the first to admit it. We had that much in common too. All of us do. Earthen vessels have their faults and their foibles. They get cracked and even broken at times. Bill had his detractors. It shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody here, but there are more than a few of us gathered here who do as well. No matter, says Paul, we may be afflicted in every way, but we are not crushed. Perplexed, but not driven to despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Struck down, but not destroyed. We have Prova. It wasn't Rocky or Marvelous Marvin, but maybe Joe Louis, who said, there are two keys to success in the boxing ring. One was showing up. If the fight begins at 9, you got to be there at 9. The other, when you get knocked down and can't get up, you get up. Bill knew the truth of this. Earthen vessels don't get repaired, and boxers don't get back in the ring by themselves. They have help. An extraordinary power, if you will. Call it grace. It comes in different guises, different shapes and sizes, races and personalities, genders and ethnicities. Bill had the help and support he needed thanks to all of you, his family and his staff, department heads and public officials, engaged citizens all, and he could engage us. He had the help and support he needed to provide leadership for our fair city against fearsome odds, not the least of which were differences and detractors. It goes with the territory of public office, and I think Bill traversed it well. The man liked to walk on the beach. I learned that just recently. And I can see him on those rare occasions when it was possible for him to do that, and I have a hard time picturing him doing that without a cell phone to his ear. And this earthen vessel liked to stop and watch the last inning or two of a Red Sox game when his day was done, more or less. And he was a family man. Think of where he was last Wednesday morning, shortly before he died, dropping off his grandson at the Arnone School, or placing his father in hospice care not so long ago, and sharing the grief that gave him with his oldest son. Say what you will about Bill Carpenter, but his dedication to family in the City of Champions was unmatched. He leaves a legacy of remarkable means, remarkable limits. There are no limits, not that he saw. He leaves a legacy I trust will not be diminished, but will be sustained by the love of his family as they share that love with each other, and by the pride you and I take in Brockton. There are more than a few who are counting on us to build upon this legacy, whether we're afflicted in every way, perplexed repeatedly, persecuted by one thing after another, or struck down now and again. Bill might help us to recall we needn't be crushed or driven to despair or forsaken or destroyed. St. Paul tells the Corinthians and us, we do not lose heart because we look not at what can be seen, but what cannot be seen, at the eternal. And so the eternal is what we look to here, and what, when we're in touch with our deepest craving, we know to be a gift available to us all. It's not earned, but offered freely. And we work at it. What Bill knew best when he gave of himself to his family and to the city of Brockton and to the many worthy causes he served with unfailing dedication was just that. We give thanks for him today. We honor him by dedicating ourselves to a legacy that nothing can destroy. Thanks be to God. Now, I know that when we go to Fenway Park along about the 8th inning, we sing Sweet Caroline, whether the bullpen has already blown the save or whether the Red Sox are on their way to the World Series. And we're not going to be singing that today, but we are going to hear a rendition of Sweet Caroline. when we were planning the service at Bill's and Anna's home a few days ago, Delaney said, I have kind of a odd suggestion. And that was what she suggested. It was just right, Delaney. Thank you. We are honored to have Mr. Michael Curry, a board member of the NAACP, with us here this morning. Mr. Curry, will you share a few words with us at this time?
Good morning. First, let me start by saying how I feel honored and blessed to be here today at this homegoing service and to be asked by the family to provide some remarks about a remarkable person, a selfless man, a tireless public servant who just happened to also be the mayor of Brockton and a friend. To his children, Bill Carpenter IV, and his wife, Anna, Ryan, Brady, Mac, Curran, and Delaney, to the special woman in his life, Julie Smith Caldwell, and his grandchildren, including his son Cameron, who attends summer camp at the Arnon with my son Malcolm. And to Nick, Darren, Peter, Andrea, and their entire staff, our prayers are with you during this time. To the residents of Brockton, those who seek and receive substance use services and over the years have shared their very personal stories with addiction with this mayor. The multi-ethnic and multiracial families who call Brockton their home and have appealed to the mayor for safer neighborhoods. To the elders, servicemen and women, and people with disabilities who felt heard and respected by this administration. And to the local businesses that found even greater access and opportunity over the past 5 years, my sincerest condolences. To his fellow elected officials, Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, senators and representatives, Brockton City councilors, and the many mayors and countless others who have come to pay their respects to this true champion of champions, thank you. As former president of the Boston NAACP, member of the National NAACP Board of Directors, and a senior vice president for the Massachusetts League of Community Health Centers, I have had the opportunity to meet many mayors from across the nation. I have had roles that have required me to engage quite a few on important civil rights issues, social justice issues, and public health issues. However, I have only had occasion to call very few a friend, and Bill was a friend. That might come as a surprise to some who didn't see me regularly walking through Brockton City Hall or standing with the mayor at local events. Unlike prior administrations in Brockton and Boston, I didn't serve on any boards, task forces, and commissions. However, as Mary Waldron knows, from the beginning of his administration, Mayor Carpenter would reach out for my input on some key issues facing the city, and would always start by saying, Michael, I know you're busy, but I'd like to get your thoughts. Or Michael, let me know how I can help you with the work that you're doing, especially with our young people. Whether it was in passing on Beacon Hill, at Brockton High School, where my oldest son graduated and middle son now attends, or at his State of the City address, the mayor always greeted me with a smile and an invitation to reconnect. His authenticity and his genuine interest in getting the perspective of others is what made him special. He understood that the key to successful and effective leadership is listening, being willing and comfortable to engage people who might have a different perspective or experience, and the humility to understand the importance of public service. We would sometimes disagree, but I always felt respected and heard. That's often missing in government and politics today. The mayor called me once early in his administration and asked for my thoughts on the violence in Brockton, as he was trying to explore what his administration might do to stop the senseless gun violence. We had a great conversation about the social determinants of violence. That is poverty, lack of jobs, untreated illnesses, failing schools, mental health conditions, lack of recovery services, the failing safety net, as well as the fractured family structures and internalized racism that contribute to violence. It seemed to confirm what he was hearing from other residents. He asked about potential experts in the field that he might call for assistance and said, "Michael, I hope you don't mind if I call you again." That was Bill. He didn't waste any time, as he significantly increased investments in public safety and worked with agencies and external partners to deliver critical services. As he shared with us in March, he was proud of the double-digit decreases in robberies, aggravated assaults, and firearm-related incidents, but still wasn't satisfied as long as anyone experienced crime and violence in his city. He gained statewide and national recognition for his work to provide substance use treatment in Brockton, and his Champion Plan, an innovative approach to fight the opioid crisis. He was also a staunch advocate for public education and would often reference our need to invest in the city's greatest resource, our future generations. I was appreciative when he agreed to host over 100 NAACP youth and adults on the City Hall grounds for a Brockton Boston Youth Rally, along with the state's Department of Conservation and Recreation. He dispatched Andrea to make sure the youth had whatever they needed. He envisioned and fought for a thriving downtown with additional market rate housing and successful businesses, and invited all of us to keep an eye out for the unprecedented construction. He confirmed that it takes a master carpenter to build a city, as we all look forward to seeing his vision realized over the coming months and years. Mayor Carpenter understood that leading this diverse city required he travel outside of Massachusetts, like his numerous trips to Cape Verde to understand the culture, talk law enforcement, commerce, and education, and connect with the homeland of Brockton's biggest immigrant community. When I heard that he was also visiting a distillery in the islands that produces rum that is imported by a Brockton-based company, I thought about testing the bounds of our friendship and asking him to bring me a bottle back. But I didn't. He also had intentions on one day visiting Haiti, also the place of origin for many Brockton residents. But he did travel to DC to discuss the Trump administration's then expected changes to the temporary protected status. And while there, also advocated for federal infrastructure investments that might improve the roads, bridges, and transportation systems of this city. We may have taken for granted just how demanding the job of mayor can be, how daunting the economic challenges and social challenges that face this city are, because he made it look so easy. Nick will tell you he did it with little sleep, too little time, and often with a laugh and a smile. He connected in a real way with real people with real problems. He understood that many of our challenges could be addressed through sound public policy, responsive and timely city services, and a willingness to dream big. An African proverb reminds us, if you know the beginning well, the end won't trouble you. If you know the beginning well, the end won't trouble you. Mayor Carpenter provided us with a lifetime of service, from his time on the Brockton School Committee to giving us the play-by-play at our kids' games. From his bold vision to rebuild a city to his years of service as our mayor, he leaves an indelible mark in our hearts and minds, and a lasting footprint on the city of Brockton. Bill, I'm thankful to have come this way during your time and have called you a friend. Thank you, Mayor Carpenter.
Nick Giaquinto has been the mayor's chief of staff for a few years now and has worked tirelessly, sometimes 17 to 18 hours a day, at the mayor's side. It's certainly fitting that we hear from Nick Giaquinto now.
Good morning, everyone. To the Carpenter family, Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, distinguished guests, friends, and colleagues. I worked for Mayor Carpenter for nearly 6 years, a long time for anyone in this job. I spent over a year as chief of staff, but I tell you, it really felt more like 3. In all those years, I never once addressed him as Bill. This was something I learned long ago from my days in the state legislature. If anyone deserved to be recognized by their title, it was Mayor Carpenter. I've had immense respect for the position, and I felt I owed that to him for dedicating his entire life to the city and the people of Brockton. Every waking minute of each day, it was Brockton 24/7. It astonished me ever since my first day at work. I was 26 years old and asking myself how on earth this guy had more energy than I did. It turned out it wasn't the Diet Mountain Dew. He just loved seeing the city grow and thrive. It was his purpose during this exciting and important chapter of his life. I would see Bill in action each and every day, and I learned a great deal from him. He had a natural talent for negotiating and always drove home the really important meetings with some form of successful outcome. He was the perfect combination of skill, judgment, and personality to achieve many great things for Brockton. I saw it hundreds, if not thousands, of times. I envied his ability to be self-taught and was extremely grateful to work with someone who wanted to share these experiences with me. He joked that he was always an idea man, and not necessarily what he called the office type. I would brag that I possessed both qualities, but his response was always the same, that he had much more hair than me when he was my age. What always really impressed me was how great of an orator he was. On many occasions, I remember running from one event to the next, and within 30 seconds of having arrived, he was already on stage offering what sounded like perfect, well-recited remarks, with hardly any time to prepare or gather his thoughts. The mayor and I had been through it all. Manhole explosions, the snow apocalypse, water main breaks, even rabid raccoons. There wasn't much we hadn't had to deal with together. I often joke with him from time to time that the only thing we hadn't experienced was the Joker taking over the city. Even then, we looked to found wood to knock on. I got to know Bill Carpenter very well, and believe me when I tell you, this man literally worked about 20 hours a day. Trust me. I know, I tried to match his pace. This only led to male pattern baldness and infinitely low cell phone batteries. I can recall taking notes on toilet paper and running out of the shower to answer the phone on several occasions. In this job, we weren't looking at the clock because it was almost time to go home. It's because we were running out of time and needed more. You could not get more dedicated than Bill, and I truly admired that. We had a system we referred to as the 12 to 4, a.m. These were the hours I could expect not to hear from him because he was sleeping. But even on occasion, a house would catch fire or a car would crash into the front of a convenience store, and suddenly a text would roll into me at 12:45 in the morning. The mayor knew there was a role for him at each and every one of these incidents. It was his style, and it was exhausting. It may not sound like it, but I am going to miss these moments dearly. For about 5 years, I woke up to the sound of the mayor's text messages every single morning, around 5:15 a.m. or so, or sometimes even in the 4 o'clock hour. These were my orders. It was my to-do list for the day, my assignments. At the time, they seemed annoying and disruptive, but now I miss them more than ever. At 5 a.m., my phone is now silent, and ironically, this is what prevents me from sleeping. I wish I could go back in time and let these texts be what starts my day once more. When the workday finally ended, separation from each other didn't last long. I was very fortunate to have a boss like Bill who was tech savvy. We were constantly mobile and getting work done on the go, particularly when we traveled to Washington or Beacon Hill. But I must say, giving a man like Bill Carpenter this technology meant that you could completely forget about clocking out. He was a big fan of Twitter and this mobile app called SeeClickFix that basically allowed him to delegate work and assignments to department heads and staff 24/7 from anywhere in the world. You couldn't escape him if you tried. If I had a day off, he would forget and begin texting me assignments before sunrise, and then apologize profusely over and over again, waking me up. But the truth was, I was already usually awake. Working for someone like Bill Carpenter changes your sleep pattern. I went from being a 7 a.m. guy to roughly a 5 a.m. guy, but I can tell you, I got a lot more done. And I'm a more productive person having worked for Bill, that's for sure. On more than one occasion, Bill had told me he always thought of me more as a son than just a staffer. And I knew that because I bumped into people constantly who told me how highly he would speak of me to them and to others. To no longer have Bill with me at City Hall suddenly disrupts my entire life. But I am proud and so grateful to have been part of something so special. It's been the greatest honor of my life serving as Chief of Staff for the best mayor Brockton will ever have. Mayor Bill Carpenter invested in me, built my character, and developed my skills, and had faith that a young person like myself could do this job. It will be easy for us to remember Bill, as we will only need to look around at all the progress in this great city. Thank you, and God bless everybody.
A very good friend to Bill, and his former Chief of Staff, Bob Buckley, is a familiar figure to the citizens of Brockton and served us in many, many ways as well. So I ask Bob to come forward now.
Sorry, Nick, I have to raise this. The great American philosopher Mike Tyson once said, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face." Last Wednesday, the city of Brockton, Carpenter family, Julie, the love of his life, those who shared his vision, and his many, many friends got punched in the face. It was a sucker punch that has left this city dazed and confused. Life is unfair, and this gathering is perfect proof. For today we say goodbye, much too soon, to our leader, our confidant, and our friend. Bill Carpenter's impact on this city and on our lives will be everlasting. For those who do not speak kindly of Bill Carpenter, all I can say is, you didn't know Bill Carpenter. You never had a deep, long-lasting conversation with him, and you did not have Bill Carpenter as a friend. Fortunately, Bill Carpenter considered me his friend, something that I will treasure every day of my life. I worked with Bill Carpenter, I worked beside Bill Carpenter, and I worked for Bill Carpenter. But regardless of which preposition I used, there were three things always guaranteed: fun, laughter, and working for the greater good of those we served. I could stand here for the next hour and talk about all of his accomplishments, but I don't need to, because his accomplishments stand before us. We can talk about Independence Academy, where students who have drug problems can get education while dealing with their addiction. Then there was the Friendship Hockey Series in 2004, where Bill served as a peace ambassador, keeping the two great superpowers of North America, Brockton and Canada, from going to war. Then there was the Nicholas Richardson Field of Dreams that allowed children with disabilities to play baseball, the game he loved. These institutions live on, as do the many parks and buildings that did not exist 5 years ago in the city of Brockton. And this summer and fall, you will see construction in downtown that you have not seen in a century. All of this became a reality because Bill Carpenter had a vision. He took the lead, and he didn't stop until those things happened. But I didn't come to talk about that. I came to talk about that laugh. Oh my God, that laugh. I'm gonna let you in on a few secrets from the mayor's office. I hope you don't mind. There were times where people would come into the office and they didn't have an appointment. And they weren't the most rational people, and we really didn't want the mayor to see these people. I hope the city council doesn't take that personally. But when these people came in, we would call them cookies. So what we would do is we would hide the mayor in his office. We would lock the doors and we'd tell him under no circumstances are you to come out into this hallway or to make any noise whatsoever. And 90 to 95% of the time that worked out well. Either someone from the staff or myself would calm the person who came in, but occasionally there's that one person that just wants to see the mayor and isn't leaving. And we keep on saying, I'm sorry, he's not here. And then all of a sudden, from the mayor's office came this large bellow. Everyone knew what it was, and everyone knew who it was. Because if there was one thing about Mayor Carpenter, he could not stop working. So he would get on the phone. And when you were mayor, if a conversation with him didn't involve laughter, you were in serious trouble. But 90% of those conversations ended up with Bill Carpenter laughing, as he always did, and we all know it. And you didn't even have to say anything funny because no one enjoyed a Bill Carpenter joke more than Bill Carpenter. The fact is, Bill Carpenter took his job seriously. He took the issues before him seriously, but he never took himself seriously. He had an amazing sense of humor and a sense of timing that comedians would die for. He was always prepared, whether it was a Brockton and Bedford Big Three football battle or a $450 million city budget. Bill Carpenter was prepared. When he began as mayor, he surrounded himself with the smartest people he could find, present company excluded, of course. Because Bill wanted to know every issue inside and out. But a funny thing happened along the way. Bill Carpenter became the smartest guy in the room, or at least the most prepared. On more than one occasion, I had many an expert leave his office shaking his head, having learned something about his specialty that he didn't know before. The late Boston Globe columnist George Fraser devised a term, duende. It's a term that's not easily defined. It's not tangible. It's just a special magic that some people have. Not many people have it. To paraphrase Fraser, it's what Ted Williams had even while striking out, yet Barry Bonds lacked even while hitting a home run. Bill Carpenter had duende. And because of that, our city is a better place, and all of our lives have been enriched. In conclusion, I would just like to thank the Carpenter family for sharing this sky with us. To Delaney, there was only one time when work came to a stop, and that's when you came to the office. He glowed every time he talked about you. He was so proud of you. And I know your pain is very real right now, but a father could not be more proud of anyone as he was of you. To the Carpenter men, you've been hit in the face harder than anyone. But the bell is about to ring for the next round, and you have to come out swinging. You carry on the legacy and the name, and each of you possess a gift your father has handed down to you. Use that gift wisely and serve others, and you cannot help but be a credit to your father's name. To Julie, I only wish I could turn back the hands of time to July 2nd, just for you. But please know that you were the true love of his life, and the only thing he enjoyed more than having you on his arm at social events was coming home to you at night. How do I know this? Well, there are a lot of 90-minute rides to either Leominster or Fitchburg during our WBET football broadcasting days. And we got to Route 2 every time in that green jalopy that he drove, the radio would die. So we actually had to talk to one another. Believe me, we shared more than a few thoughts, so I know you are the true one. For the rest of you, we have been punched in the face, but I have a plan. We need to take things from Bill Carpenter. His work ethic, his boundless energy, and his devotion to make the lives of the less fortunate better. If we do that, Bill Carpenter will live in each and every single one of us. That, my friends, is not a bad plan. And one more thing, don't forget to laugh. Thank you.
I would ask that you unite your hearts and bow your heads with me in prayer. Let us pray. Gracious God, eternal lover of all souls, we may be burdened now with the heaviness of loss and separation, as one we loved and who has walked faithfully among us is now passed on to a larger place, a room of your heavenly home. May none of us harbor any bitterness or self-pity. Rather, may quiet strength and confidence be restored as we face life in true perspective, knowing that both life and death belong to you, knowing that we have a legacy to honor, work to do. Grant us the abiding assurance that none of us, nor any whom we love, can ever go beyond your love and your steadfast care, that underneath each of us are the everlasting arms, and that your strength is sufficient for our every need. Turn our night, O Lord, into the morning of gladness, our time of sorrow into the quiet joy of thanksgiving, to laughter and more of love. We would remember the rich years of love and companionship, the kindnesses in our labors together with Bill, the fidelity and devotion to home and family, to the city of Brockton and its citizenry. Surround the memories we cherish and hold dear with all that is good and lasting and true. Set our minds, we pray, and hearts to the unfinished work where we find comfort and meaning and peace, especially as we share our lives generously with others. May we apply ourselves to excellence in whatever we do, and so capture something more of the promise of our humanity. We ask all this in the name of him who proclaimed by the life he lived, because I live, you shall live also. We ask it in your holy name. Amen. By way of benediction, I share an Irish blessing that Tommy Kennedy once shared with me. When the first light of sun, with that first light of sun, may God bless you. When the long day is done, may God bless you. In your smiles and your tears, may God bless you. Through each day of your years, may God bless you. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, on behalf of Mayor Bill Carpenter's family, they would like to thank truly Reverend Bill McCoy, who's our Brockton Fire Department chaplain, for celebrating his services for us today. Special thanks to the governor, the lieutenant governor, the Brockton Police, Fire, honor guards, and all the personnel that are here. The speakers that spoke to us were truly amazing today. Special thanks to our wonderful musicians, Donna and Teresa, who came all together to make this truly, truly a wonderful memorial to Bill. I think we're all thinking the same thing. He is laughing and smiling. It was truly amazing. The family also wants to thank all the elected officials that are here with them today and all their friends that are here for not only being here with them today, but also for all your love and your support that you've shown towards them over the past week. As Buck mentioned, it's been a punch in everybody's face, but they truly appreciate your support. We are going to be processing Mayor Bill Carpenter over to the Rocky Marciano statue here on the grounds of the Brockton High School. And for those that know about the statue, Mayor Carpenter fought tooth and nail to have that statue here in our city. So it's going to be a lovely tribute. You are all welcome to join us. We are going to have the family in procession along with the Pipes and Drums Band. We're going to march over to the statue. We do ask that nobody takes their vehicles, unfortunately, but if you would like to walk over with us to the statue, the firefighters, Pipes and Drums are going to have a special tribute to Mayor Bill, and then the family will process to Blue Hill Crematory. On Monday, Bill will be brought to his family lot in the town of Marshfield, where the family's going to have a private ceremony. but you are all welcome to meet at Brockton City Hall at roughly 10:30 on Monday, and we will have a final farewell to Mayor Bill. We will process by City Hall for the last time, and you are all more than welcome to join them there. And on a last note, after the services here at the statue, you are all welcome to Joe Angelo's Cafe, which is on Crescent Street. On the back of your programs, it should have the address if you need a GPS, but you're all welcome to join the family there. So we thank you all again, and at this time, we are going to ask that you all kindly stand. Right hand. Hey, hold on. Present. Up. Order. Up. Retrieve the colors. Left. Please. Forward, march.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as our Father,